Hey everybody, I'm Spencer from Pixel and Bracket. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I recolored a photo with the Camera Raw filter in Adobe Photoshop. Okay guys, so what I want to do is open up the video file and I'm just going to play through it. I've already done the recoloring I found someone who was on Twitter who needed some help and wanted to see if I could help them. And so what I'm really going to do here is explain to you the steps that I took and went through to try and fix the coloring on the photo. What happened was well, you can see it right now. I'll put it up. It's way overexposed. It's way too red. You know, there was a filter put on it. It's got a little bit too much saturation. And so I just tweaked some of the settings in Camera Raw to bring those colors and everything back to more of a natural look. I'm going to pause the video at times to explain maybe a little bit more what I'm doing, and I may skip around here and there depending on how well I feel I'm explaining it and how important certain aspects of the video are for you, the viewer, to watch. I hope that I don't have to show you the whole video. It was about 7.5 minutes or so, but let's go ahead and get started. You can see here I've got the photo on the left, which is the photo that had the filter, probably an Instagram filter, put over the top of it, and I was asked to try to make that a little bit more natural of a photo without the filter. You can see a photo on the right I was using sort of as a guide to how their skin tone should look, how some of the background should look, and how the overall photo should look. The photo on the right is actually way higher quality than the one on the left, but the one on the left's the one they wanted, and they're not using it as a high quality photo necessarily. So there is some grittiness to it. There is some data that's lost. You can see it's way overexposed in the upper right, and I'm not sure ahead of time if I show it in this video, but that area of the photo, it has zero information in it. It's totally white. You can't pull anything back out of it, and that's okay. You know, I'm working with what I got here. Let's go ahead and start. So what I'm doing first is trying to be a little bit non-destructive. I'm going to work only on the top layer, so I duplicated that layer so that I could keep the original. Now if you select from the filter drop down the Camera Raw filter, that's what we've jumped into here. And if you've never used Camera Raw before, a lot of times you'll encounter it if you're opening up a raw photo or raw image directly from a camera, like a Canon or a Nikon. You can shoot in JPEG with those cameras, but you can also shoot RAW. And in the RAW format, there's just a lot more information that you can bring into Photoshop. Use the Camera Raw. In this case, it wouldn't be the filter necessarily. It's just going to pull it in with Camera Raw, and you can make these tweaks. Like for instance, you can adjust the white balance, some of the exposure, the contrast, and there's a lot more information there because it's a raw photo that you can tweak it without losing a whole lot of quality. So that's what I generally use Camera Raw for. But with one of the recent updates, it became a filter, not a filter in the sense of an Instagram filter or adding some special effect, but just a filter that gives any normal regular image access to all the Camera Raw features. Now that's not to say the image has any more depth to it or quality, but I can tweak some of the, if I'm used to using Camera Raw to tweak certain things, like you can see clarity, vibrance, stuff like that, I can use it now on a normal photo or image or element or layer, really a layer, to do whatever kind of tweaking I want to it and save that back out. Now I'm not sure if I did a smart filter here or if I do that later, but it's a good idea to use smart filters on your layers, because then I can go back and tweak my Camera Raw settings, and they're essentially they're applied semi-permanently and not permanently when you use smart filters, as are any filters. Okay, that was quite a bit of explanation on Camera Raw. Let's get started here. So I began just by tweaking the white balance. I knew that I had a lot of red in the photo and that I needed to push the blues and the greens more to sort of bring those skin tones back to a natural level. And you can see I've already actually gotten rid of a lot of that redness, but I still have a lot of blue in it here. So I'm just going through and I'm tweaking some of the shadows, the whites and the blacks, and you'll see me sort of whip the little toggle slider around a little bit, because I want to see how it affects the photo if I go all the way to the left and all the way to the right, and then I sort of find that middle point where I feel like it's the best fit for the look that I'm trying to go after. And once I tweaked some of the clarity, some of the vibrance and saturation and those lower settings, I went back up to the white balance and began tweaking that a little bit more, just to find that natural skin tone. And now I'm adjusting the saturation a little bit, because I felt like not only was the photo too red, but it might also have been a little bit oversaturated. That the colors were popping a little bit too much, a little bit unnatural. And that's what those filters, Instagram filters, a lot of times they make your photo a little bit hyper realistic. And so I'm trying to pull back some of that hyper realism and add a lot more naturalism to the photo. I screenshotted all of my settings there so that I remember them for later. That's actually not the best way to do it. You can save a preset, and I know I do that at some point, but I should have just done that in the beginning. So I actually don't use some of these other tabs very often, because a lot of these options I do in other, their own layers and things like that. But I thought that I would go ahead and surf through some of these tabs just to see what more I could pull out of the photo, how much more natural of a look I could get. And really, I believe the only thing that I ended up doing with these sliders was the girl's cheek was a little bit, I think, yellow, and it seemed discolored compared to the rest of her face. And I think I needed to add a little bit more orange, maybe a little bit more magenta into it in order to smooth out her skin tone. You can see me, I'm just very slightly tweaking settings here, just looking at how each slider's affecting the image. I moved back to my saturation and vibrance and sort of flip-flopped. I brought up vibrance and pulled back saturation, as opposed to having vibrance pulled back and saturation pushed. Vibrance tends to give you a little bit more fine-tuning control to the color of your image, and saturation is kind of a little harsher. You can think of vibrance as like small steps and saturation as large steps in change. From here, I felt like I should adjust some of the white balance a little bit. Maybe his suit was feeling a little bit too colored when it should be black. And now, actually, I think I noticed her cheek being a little bit too, her cheek was way too yellowish. And so I'm trying to find it here. I'm trying to find the color that's going to affect that. And now you see it blended very well when I pulled back some of those yellows. And sometimes you just have to try sliders. You have to try dragging them one way and then the other, just to see what part of the image that affects. And that's what I'm doing here, you guys. I don't know everything there is to know, and I don't think that anybody's really given any photo like this just gonna exactly know where to put all those sliders at, unless they've done it before with a similar set of photos. So what we're doing here, and what you might be doing at home, is guessing and checking. You take a slider, drag it all the way to the right, drag it all the way to the left, and see how it affects the photo, and then find out where you feel like it looks best and move that slider there. Move on to the next slider, see what it does, see how much clarity affects it one way or the other way, and then maybe just tweak it a little bit. And I guess a good rule of thumb for me is, whenever I feel like, you see me tweaking clarity there, whenever I feel like I have gotten it to the right position, I tend to always pull it back just a touch, because a lot of times you think that what you're seeing is the way that image should look, but really it's always in comparison to the last state that you saw that image. So if I pulled that clarity up all the way, massive amount. It totally, if it totally just completely transforms the photo into something I don't want, and I pull it back, compared to where it was, when I pull it back, that spot is going to look correct. But the reality is that spot might have been still a little bit over sharpened or overdone on the clarity. Okay, now you see I've finished making my tweaks in Camera Raw, and look at how much we've adjusted that photo. I mean, we've completely taken all that magenta out. I've darkened up some of the suit colors. You can see a little bit more of the background. All the colors look very much more natural, and I felt pretty good about it at this point. I hope you guys learned some from watching this, and I hope I explained some things okay. Seriously, if you have any comments or questions, post them below, shoot me an email, send me a message. I'm always available to help. I can't wait to put out more videos like this where I walk you through something that I've done so that maybe you can learn from me what sort of steps that I've taken, and even miscues at times, like the wrong moves as well as the right moves, because not every designer is perfect, and sometimes it's trial and error. Like, it's totally trial and error to find that perfect way to manipulate a photo or create a design or some sort of effect for your image. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.